All right, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. It is October 13th, 2020, and we are here for the regularly scheduled Mayor and Commission work session. And we also will have a special called session for consideration of a single voting item, as well as for an executive session. And we will call that to order in just a little bit. But we'll begin with Manager Blaine Williams, who's going to give us an update on our COVID-19 response.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank our staff for setting this up for us. The internet was tested here and it worked fine. We're not sure, and it should have had plenty of capacity. We're not exactly sure what happened. I appreciate your patience. It's sort of like a startup. You know, if you're going to fail, fail fast so we can get through the night, right? But we've got something set up here. We've got... I'm told the public is able to see this, so we're able to move forward. And I appreciate the mayor and the commission for agreeing to meet somewhere different and to be in person. I think that's very important for us to be able to see each other in a safe manner. So going to the COVID-19 response update, you know, we committed to coming to you every month and sharing with you an update on the numerous things that initiatives that you have directed staff to pursue in the safety of our community. And just go to the purpose. Look at, we were going to look at the state data. I'm just going to go to our Clarke County employee data, talk to you about enforcement activities, some of our community support activities, our remote learning locations, which is our leisure services community centers that you appropriated $500,000 to improve internet access for students to come there. I think you'll be pleased with some of that progress. Talk about the indigent services funding in the CARES Act, what's going on with business support services, and how we've been doing with public information and meetings. We'll go through all that and more. Talking about unified government employee case count, you can see that here. This is exposures per week. The exposure count is really a lagging amount of folks that are still considered to have been exposed. Really, it accounts for a couple of weeks of folks, 10 to 14 days, whereas the orange line is new exposure. So in that particular week, how many people have actually been exposed? You can see with a population sample of 1,700 that our numbers pretty much mirror that of Clarke County. And I think that says a lot because, you know, 80% of what we spend our money on are people, and they are in the community and they're working and helping people. And so they're certainly in the midst of it all. And they've managed to stay safe for the most part. This is something I know that's important and y'all have been keeping up to date with. But with the enforcement, this weekend, we had additional occupancy checks here, 73 in fact. 6 bars were non-compliant, and if you'd like to know who those are, I'm glad to tell you. The Silver Dollar received a citation. The Cloud Bar received a citation. The Rowdy Goose, a citation. General Beauregard, a citation, and Club Genesis. And I'm sorry, this is September 27th. October the 4th, Wonder Bar received a written warning, Moonshine, a verbal warning, Cloud, a citation, and On the Rocks, a verbal warning. Overall, 10 bars were non-compliant that week. This past weekend, 6 bars were non-compliant and received either a citation or a warning for violation of the governor's order. And that was Soundtrack, a written warning, Bad Moon Bar, a written warning, Saki Mama, a citation. Bourbon Street, a written warning. And Bar South, a written warning. Woodford received a citation. Of course, it was game day. We had a lot of folks in town. I think our officers are doing an excellent job of conducting these. And let's just say at this point, it should not be a surprise that this occupancy limits are in place. And we are pursuing this to the full extent of what we're allowed to in the governor's order. So just cumulatively, I'm just telling you what's happened in the last month. Of course, this has been going on for some time now. Overall, the bars are in compliance when we check. A lot of the issues are outside the bars. People are waiting to get in. And you can see here the verbal written warnings and citations that have been delivered as of October the 4th. The face mask enforcement, and again, I want you public to understand we're having to pull additional officers down into the downtown area. We had 28 additional this weekend, halved over Friday and Saturday, and 803 masks were distributed to folks. And this is, and I think this is important for folks to know, because we've gotten the question, why aren't you writing more citations for face mask violations? And the fact is that the governor's order is very explicit that there is a verbal warning or a warning, and then if you have a mask, you offer that, and if the person complies, then that's the end of it. It's only when folks are obstinate and refuse to do that the citation was written. None were written this weekend's enforcement. When people were approached and asked, they donned the mask. Last weekend, 1,300 masks, and this was, of course, the weekend of the Auburn game, and numerous warnings were issued, but no citations. So our police have distributed over almost 5,000 masks to citizens, and we've had 14 citations to date.
No, Mickey.
Beyond that mask distribution, you had made it a priority early on that our government lead the way and distribute masks to our citizens, our residents, and so far, we've ordered almost 80,000 masks, and 77,500 of those have been distributed out to our residents. And most of this is done very quickly, within, sometimes 1 to 3 days, and certainly all within 2 weeks. Athens Eats Together, the week of September 21st, so within this last 30-day period, the Council on Aging opened up their phone lines. Catch up with you here. And of course, the Council on Aging has been our prime partner on this program. And they have partnered not only with our PIO, certainly with the school district and the neighborhood leaders and the food bank to spread the word and distribute the flyers. And ads are also being run in the Flagpole and Athens Banner Herald every other week. So the Meals on Wheels infrastructure was already in place to assist with the increase in the daily routing for distribution, building on what Council on Aging and school district have been doing. And with the ongoing partnership with Family Connection and Communities in Schools, neighborhood leaders now pick up food commodity bags from Cotton Press for daily distribution to residents located in all of the 13 neighborhood zones. In addition, volunteers from First Presbyterian Church are assisting with bulk deliveries to residents at Columbia Brookside. The Athens Nurses Clinic has also been added as a distribution site, and drive-through distribution is available from the Council on Aging campus 3 times per week, where residents receive food and commodity bags that include fresh produce. So when residents enroll in Athens Eats Together, they're given food options, which include food and commodity bags, frozen meals, or a bag of ready-to-eat meals. In addition, vouchers are being distributed to residents for use at the Athens Farmers Market. These vouchers worth $28 may be used to purchase fresh produce or proteins. Next week's or next month's update should also include our first set of performance metrics with information on numbers of meals served, amount of funding used, as well as demographic data. But thus far, total meals served have been about 13,000. With the CARES Act and the resiliency, funds. About 700 folks have been served, and the goal for the people served is around 10,000. So we got about 7% of the goal reached in the first month. And here is a slide that folks can find out more about how to become enrolled in this program. On the community core, we're pleased to announce that Gustavus Rodriguez Socorro is our new work development coordinator a month ago. We've got an outreach plan with multiple community partners information to help with recruitment and the hiring. Those job postings are live right now. Will run through October the 26th. The curriculum plan's well under development, and several departments are involved, as well as community partners, to get these folks, help them hit the ground running. We hope to have them on board by the beginning of December.
I have a question really quick. So I was contacted by a constituent who was concerned that there's a component of the curriculum that trains ACOR participants, and let's see, they said that they may be required to complete security training for the supervision of inmate workers as set forth by the Georgia Department of Corrections standard operating procedures within 3 months of date of hire or first available opportunity. So I guess, could you tell us more about that? And then see if we can address that concern people have about their participation in the inmate work program.
And I'm gonna repeat your question for the benefit of the public. Commissioner Parker asked, if I might just summarize,
Yeah.
and please correct me, about that you had a call from a constituent that was concerned that the job description was requiring or may require certification or some training into managing inmates. And thank you for forwarding that, I think a couple of days ago. We did talk with Gustavo, and we clarified that that is not a requirement for the position.
Okay. So, so no one will be required to do that as a part of the program, but they can opt in for that training.
That's my understanding, that they would not be required to train to oversee inmates. That was what the.
Okay. I think there's some folks in the community who might feel comfortable if that wasn't a part of the curriculum at all. I don't know if it's too late to modify that to.
I think they went
focus
back
on
and
other
took it out
areas.
of the job posting.
Okay.
They extended it as well, so that.
Oh, wonderful! That's wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Yes. And I'm looking at Laura and Josh to make sure I didn't. That's right. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Thornton.
We were asking questions.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of slides. Please go ahead.
Citations downtown, and my question is, it might be out of everybody's citation, if anyone receive more than one citation?
Yes. Hello, can y'all hear me okay? Okay, that's a great question. So the way that the governor's order, I'm sorry, let me do this for the public. Commissioner Thornton was asking of the bars that receive citations, what is the next step, and have we pursued anything further than that? Is that fair?
And did anybody receive more than one citation?
Did anybody receive more than one citation? And so we're speaking specifically about bar occupancy checks. And the way that I believe the governor's order reads is that the first time's a verbal warning, and then they get 2 citations. And after the second of the 2 citations, then there is a reasonable notice that is placed. And I'm looking for Doug next time. And at that point, the mayor can shut down the bar. And my understanding is that there is one bar that has that threshold where they're moving towards the reasonable notice.
Okay. So my next question is about Athens East, and you said that you had a goal of, did you say 10,000 meals served? Is that a goal?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Thornton is asking if Athens East 10,000 meals was a goal, and it is.
So my next question is, is there anybody in our office that is looking at the other issues? Is there any data? Show what and how many beds.
Okay, so Commissioner Thornton was asking, do we have a way of tracking all of the food distribution efforts and understanding how many folks are being fed during the pandemic? And I would say that our staff is not currently tracking every individual effort that any church might be doing. What we've done is partnered with the two largest food distribution efforts we're aware of, and that's the school district and the Council on Aging, and using their what we're calling infrastructure, but they've already got a program set up, and there's no need for us to replicate that. And what they have indicated to us is that that there is additional need, and so partnering with them and the neighborhood leaders and the school district and others, we've started an enrollment process for folks to come. If somebody's already being served or being taken care of, then ostensibly they would not enroll in this program either.
And I guess the nonprofits and churches like their food, and also now they're wondering, take time to check with food bank to see how many organizations outside of Athens do. That would at least give us a ballpark figure, because actually we're doing this because of the COVID, but it's not just because of the COVID. We have a hunger problem, food shortage. Period. This just is highlighted.
Sure.
And so if someone would take time and look at, check in with the food bank to see what and how many of these organizations are giving away trailer food. That's a better idea, give you another idea of really how big the problem really is. And I think that would be important.
Okay. And Commissioner Thornton was saying that, making sure that we understood what the food bank's activities were would be important as well. And I think that the food bank is in partnership with the Council on Aging, as far as I know, but Commissioner Thornton will follow up. Online, with Athens Banner Herald.
Are we reaching out to any other minority organizations and radio?
Sure. And Council on Aging is coordinating that advertising, so we can certainly check with them on that.
But if they're using our money, then
Yes, Commissioner Link.
Yeah. Tremendous amount of our police resources. We're putting in lots and lots of overtime, basically babysitting folks who know what the rules are, yet can't seem to follow them. Have we reached out to other resources to help with that enforcement? Because the governor's order does allow code enforcement to enforce. And I'm wondering if we've thought about hiring some part-timers and deputizing them, code enforcement officers. And also, if we could pull some UGA police in. From what I understand, a good portion of downtown is within their jurisdiction, correct?
It is. So the Commissioner Link was asking if we could use other resources because we're taxing the police with, and it's true. Well, I don't know. And Commissioner Link, you mentioned finding people, deputizing them, and having them help. And I know you had shared the city of Savannah had some of the Welcome Center people handing out masks and reminding people to wear masks. And certainly we could look at that. You know, and I've talked with the chief about trying to get some assistance there that takes it off the officers. But the fact is that all of our code enforcement officers, all of our fire folks, they're all full-time people with full-time jobs too. So unless we hire new people, then it's going to continue to tax somebody. This is just extra that everybody's being asked to do. Okay. I will certainly talk with Attorney Drake as well about deputizing and the authority to do that. But certainly just to go up to people and remind them, wear a mask and hand out masks doesn't require any special.
Doing some head counts in a bar, you don't need to be a trained cop to do that.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I'll go on with remote learning, and this is a concept that Leisure Services Director Kent Kilpatrick has dubbed remote learning, and that was after the money that the Mayor and Commission appropriated to Leisure Services, it's about $460,000, to amp up the internet at our community centers so that while the school district was not having in-person instruction, that there was at least a structure, whether inside or outside, that students could come to. And the way the program works is if you're 12 or over, you don't have to have a guardian or somebody, an older brother or sister to come watch you. But if you're younger than that, you do. But we have had some citizens avail themselves, and like most things, it has to kind of get out. People need to understand what's happening, and there's some word of mouth. But we're able to track these students. And the neat thing about it is the way that our staff has set it up. A student with a Clarke County School District issued device, if they just come into the area that the Wi-Fi signal is present, it automatically picks them up. And so you can see here that this has been increasing over time. And staff is also working with Family Connection to help have some folks supervise kids who don't have a guardian to help assist them. Also, I think trying to partner with UGA as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. One thing I want to bring to your attention is that we continue to try and phase reopening of some of our park amenities, in particular the playgrounds. As you can imagine, one thing that pandemic has really had us all appreciate is, and that's being outside. And certainly our parks are almost a source of refuge for many people. We have removed the barriers from the playgrounds. Whoever, we were continually having to put up the tape. And I think it got to a point of where we felt responsible if somebody perhaps, was exposed on our equipment. But the fact is that, I think parents are going to have to make a decision about their children. And I'm not sure the government can make those decisions for them. And so we have removed the barriers, but there are signs up that are very clear about the risk involved in becoming in too close proximity or touching the surfaces that we obviously can't keep cleaned all the time. On October 3rd, the CDC has a gradation of approaches to sports and youth sports, and we have allowed youth athletic leagues to resume scrimmage games, but only within their their organization and certainly following protocols, but no out-of-county teams will be allowed to participate at this time. This is still different from all of our neighbors that's going on around us. And then this past Monday, our outdoor basketball courts reopened as well. School programming? Yes, Tim.
Just a quick question on that. Is it possible for us to have like some kind of hand sanitizer things at the playground? The people are leaving. There's something there. Is that something we could possibly do?
We can certainly try that. I know early on in the pandemic, there was those things would get stolen or vandalized, but we can certainly try and put some out and see how that goes. Commissioner Jensen was suggesting that we try to have some hand sanitizer at parks. The after-school programming, that has started. And so even after the instruction that happens virtually, and now we understand in person in November for K through 8, we do have a number of youth that have registered. Those numbers continue to increase, of course, as people find out about it. And we are going to try and operate a Friday afternoon gardening program called Grow It, Know It. And so we are, our leisure services staff, even in small ways, are trying to engage different folks from across the community and give an alternative. Incident services updates. This is for August through September. And I've spoken to some of you about this. We have to have contracts, and that would involve getting the scopes from the receiving agencies, making sure that was all done. I want to recognize our attorney's office and some of our staff who've done a tremendous amount of work making sure that everybody understood what the expectations were. There are no surprises, and I'm glad to share that we've moved on there, and I'll share a chart with you here in a second. And I'm sorry it's taken a while. We've got quite a few things going on here. I'll just run through these real quickly. I can tell you more if you're interested in any of these. But so far, $12,000 to Athens Area Diaper Bank, who served 1,300 babies, almost 51,000 diapers. The Council on Aging has served almost 42,000 meals to almost 600 individuals. Action, $25,000 for food assistance, and almost 300 individuals served there. Family Promise has served, of course, they are providing emergency shelter for homeless families, and they served a number of families with the $8,000 you've shared with them. People living in recovery, 50 individuals served thus far. Casa de Amistad has served almost 500 households with their food assistance and resource distribution service. East Athens Development Corporation has finally gotten their funding a couple of weeks ago, and they've been working on their final implementation plans. And I do want to point out that what is happening here is that there was this incredible acceleration of resources to try to get out into the community, and y'all approved that, helped push that through. And I think that part of that was trying to give nonprofits the ability to serve more. And I think you can appreciate that it takes them to time to scale as well. So there's a lot of details that go into contracting and scoping and scaling, but that's all underway now for our partners. Just for your benefit and for those watching, we have all of the CARES Act awards, what type of program that they are providing, the award amounts, and their scopes. And so all of that's been worked through, as I mentioned, and that's there for you to review. We have executed contracts, checks for the multiple agencies I just scrolled through went out last Friday. And then we have a checks that went out Monday, and we still have a few contracts that we're working on right now. The Joint Development Authority that you created back in July has been very busy, and that board has done some incredible work, and our staff and the partner financial institutions. They have, if you'll remember, you with resiliency package funds, which were directly from our fund balance, you wanted to provide to the community for relief, and that created a loan fund. And then the CARES Act funding that you approved in August created a grants program as well. And so within that short amount of time, they have stood up a loan and grant program, put applications out, evaluated applications, and have made awards. And over 300 grants have been approved for almost $650,000. And low interest loans, we've had 75 for almost $450,000. So there is, I think I mentioned before that we have had First American Bank as our third-party administrator. And there will be a second round targeted to businesses and nonprofits for between 1 and 20 employees. And those applications open or will open today and run through October 27th. So I can send you some more information on that if you'd like. I do want to mention that, and again, I appreciate your patience this evening. And I remarked to the mayor earlier that, you know, maybe there'll be a day that we won't be trying something brand new. It's been what's been called for, and actually our staff's been excited to try and innovate. Sometimes things don't work out quite like we'd hoped, but I do want to recognize our public information staff because, well, and our IT folks as well, both of who have worked hard to try to make tonight happen. If you had not approved the voice over IP technology, there is no way we would have been able to migrate to the WebEx. And I can tell you that it was March 16th when you first talked about an emergency shelter in place. And that was the same day that we had our first management team meeting on WebEx. You know, that was a Monday. That weekend, people were saying, well, where are we meeting? I'm like, we're not meeting anywhere. You're going to dial in and we're going to try this new technology. So I want to recognize that. And then if you know, it wasn't a couple of years ago that even the work sessions weren't televised, and now leapfrog to now. And, you know, normally it's our agenda setting sessions and our voting meetings. But just in the 6 months or so of the pandemic, 10 times that amount, just in a fraction of that time, our PIO staff has helped to facilitate. And, you know, that's been out of necessity for public health. But I mean, let's recognize it's also helped transparency. And I hope that a number of your constituents said, you know, I never would have even seen that if y'all had not had that streaming up there. And by and large, that has gone off without a hitch. You haven't seen the trial and error and the late nights that they put in, but I really want to call them out. And I'm sorry tonight didn't go as well as we'd hoped, but your efforts is appreciated. One thing that you may not know is it's not uncommon for up to 4 meetings to happen simultaneously. And so the folks in the PIO, you know, most meetings happen Tuesday through Thursday, right? In the afternoons or evenings. You know, you don't have a lot of Monday or Friday meetings. So we do have YouTube links and connectivity and works very closely with IT on troubleshooting. As you have borne witness to, the mayor has become quite the maestro when it comes to setting up the meeting and sending out the invitations. And that's true of a lot of our liaisons, but most of the time, PIO staff have to be there manually to start it and make sure that it's being televised appropriately. So I did want to call that out, and thank you for recognizing that. This is a question we got quite a bit about, so I'm going to transition to sort of looking ahead to the future, and Halloween's not too far away. And the mayor's gotten calls, I've gotten calls, you know, what are we going to do about Halloween? And so what, as staff and the folks that are talking about pandemic several times a week, we're gonna defer to the CDC on this. And there are, like most things, what they're doing, not unlike our playground decision, there are lower risk activities and higher risk activities. And our job is to let folks know and let them make an informed decision. And so for those that are concerned, and we would recommend pursuing lower risk activities, you know, decorating pumpkins with people that you are already cohabitating with, or doing an outdoor scavenger hunt, or a virtual costume contest, or a movie night with people that you live with. You know, these are good ideas, and it is not very difficult to figure out. You want to stay distant. You want to stay with people that you are routinely with, and you want to wear a mask when you can't be distanced. Moderate risk activities would be, and I've heard this from some of my neighbors, well, let's just put bags out, no contact, somebody can come get them, but the CDC does require, consider that a moderate risk activity. If you distanced your neighbors and had an open air costume contest, that might work. But again, just please stay distanced and have masks on. The higher risk activities, which the CDC is saying to avoid, and that I think staff would agree with, the traditional trick or treating. And I know all of you with kids know that there's several hot spots, if you will, around popular spots around Athens-Clarke County where all the kids seem to go, and that is just absolute pandemonium in a good year. We would not recommend that. Crowded costume parties, an indoor haunted house. These are things the CDC thinks that are higher risk. Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out. In my neighborhood in Boulevard, where, we usually do have the pandemonium trick-or-treating. They're doing house decorating contests, and they're doing drive-by judging of house decorating contests, and also drive-by costume contests. At a certain time, people can stand at the end of their driveway, and judges will drive by for the kids, and you sign up online ahead of time. So, and people can drive through the neighborhood, that whole week before Halloween and check out the Halloween decor. So
Commissioner Link was saying in her district in Boulevard neighborhood, they're actually having a house decorating contest, and folks can drive by and see that.
And the drive-by costume contest.
And drive-by costume contest. And that all be on Halloween proper?
I think the drive-by costume contest is on Halloween proper, and the house decorating judging is that night, but the decorations have to be up like the week before.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. Other items of note, and we really appreciate all the ideas that commissioners have forwarded, and it just takes a little time to get them going. The College Park Plaza pilot finally has been established last weekend, and folks seem to really be enjoying it and availing themselves of that. Athens-Clarke County Library and Winterville Library have teamed up for a grab and go service that started on October the 5th. The downtown parklet program, we have more and more applications for that, and that seems to be working well. Staff doesn't have any concerns over any safety issues there. The downtown pilot for outdoor expansion, I do want to tell you that the mayor has been talking with some of the establishments about, and we've talked about this concept of trying to get less people in the bars and more people outside. And we wanted to try a pilot for Auburn. That didn't work out. Tennessee, we did find a number of businesses willing to try that, but between the rain and what was going on, that didn't work out. But this weekend, there will be a pilot on the lower end of Washington Street. And all the businesses were contacted. They've had a couple of meetings. The ones on the lower end, typically where the festivals, stages are held, are interested in it. Andrew Saunders, our Central Services Director, has done a marvelous job of coming up with a program, talking with the attorney's office. This will require me to do an emergency order to get the authority to operate this program. We're going to do it this weekend. If you didn't know, this weekend is UGA graduation. And so there will be some limited outdoor space that the businesses down on the lower end can avail themselves of. The Light Out Holiday event, this is an inaugural event that Leisure Services has put together. And obviously, we weren't able to hold it, or won't be able to hold the annual downtown parade. And all community members can experience Athens in a safe and festive atmosphere. And we're looking to illuminate downtown storefronts with lights and decorations, not unlike the Halloween you were talking about. It'll be free of charge. It'll be the entire month of December. Each Friday and Saturday will be highlight evenings, and we invite folks to come down. We'll have a Christmas tree lighting, live music, appearances by holiday characters, letters to Santa, selfie spots, and more. So we are getting downtown businesses to participate, and we will follow up with you more about that. Any further questions? Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Thornton.
And this goes back to the Clarke County Leisure Services, and there was a Facebook that said all parks are open except their house to games and outdoor basketball and outdoor football remain closed. I think I know why, but there was a long thread on why basketball courts were closed, and can somebody just make a that was closed the playground road? Amen.
Well, the programs usually involve, let me just say this. So Commissioner Thornton was asking why playgrounds were open and basketball courts were closed, of course. But I don't think that the public can hear your question. Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Thornton is highlighting a Facebook post that she'd seen by somebody else asking that. And but I do want to say basketball courts are open now along with playgrounds. At the time, and I will tell you that working with Leisure Services, we struggled with, do we escalate the opportunity for people to come in closer contact with each other? Because as vigilant and concerned as you have been about the public health, so have the staff. And it really became, you can argue it either way. We've had complaints that why can't our kids are having to go to another county to try and play sports, and why can't they play here? And then we'd have parents complaining, why would they be allowed to play sports here? That's dangerous. So the simple answer, the brief answer, I should say, is that with playgrounds, generally you have a guardian that hopefully is going to be watching the kids and telling them what to do. With the basketball courts, those are generally, there's not guardians around, and folks are just going to do what they're going to do. But we got past that, and we said, that's going to be up to them to monitor themselves and keep themselves safe. We're deep into the pandemic. People know the distance. If they don't know the distance or wear a mask, we'll continue to tell them, but I think we've got that taken care of. Any other questions? It's taken quite a while. The things that you're wanting are happening, and we want to take more of your ideas. So please keep them coming. So I'll turn it over to Warden Cummings now. Are you next up? Oh, Patrick. Yes. Commissioner Davenport was asking who reports employee exposures and do we have that broken down? And yes, I want to thank Assistant Manager Edwards, because we told you we're moving into the data age, and so we've kept track. Those exposures are reported to HR, Safety and Risk. We have them broken down by department. I'm glad to share those with you and anybody that's interested in them. It's interesting. Our departments range from office of one to several hundred people, and like, for instance, you might think, and we've talked about the police department maybe and our first responders being more exposed to it, but I would say if you were to crunch the numbers of exposures by number of employees, that those wouldn't be the most effective. So I'm glad to share that with you, Mr. Davenport. Okay, I'm sorry, I got them mixed up. Who's next up? Yes. Okay. Okay, Todd. Come on up, sir.
They have another driver.
Oh, you do?
It's not working. They have it on that? Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. Hop on there. This one? Yeah. So, even want to do the last couple of slides, is that going to be possible? Get your note. Potentially. We could just end it. I might need to like find it.
Yeah, I mean, the mic is primarily. Yeah.
Okay.
What? I think so. Just a quickie real estate thing.
Audio. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A while. Yeah. Well, it'll be coming up soon. Get pressed. You got a lot going on. All right.
Let me check one thing real quick.
All right. Can everyone hear me? No? I'm just going to assume that people can. Well, good evening, everyone. There has been a lot of interest lately in the level of service associated with the stormwater fee. And when we talk about level of service, we usually do associate that with the stormwater fee as opposed to any SPLOST funding. So we're just going to run through the approved level of service that could be provided, drainage improvement agreements, and what other jurisdictions are doing. So, not much else. I don't want to take too much time on that. You may remember seeing this diagram before or something like it. Basically, what it's showing here in blue is the areas that are our responsibility, our legal responsibility, and what we agreed to do when the level of service was set up all the way back in 2003. So it's the public things, mostly within the road right-of-way. And it also includes Clean Water Act compliance. That's a major part of what the level of service has to do with regard to the stormwater fee. But then also maintenance, streets and drainage crews of the public infrastructure, stormwater, such as cleaning inlets and cleaning pipes and things like that. And of course, as of the past 2 years, we've had all of these rusty pipes that are, well, they're rusty and they're failing. And so those have been replaced. That was not originally within the scope of the level of service, but we had money built up in there. And so that has provided a great source of resilience. So then, of course, there are the other items shown here once we get off the right of way, including private detention basins, creeks, ditches, all of that. And when the level of service was approved by Mayor and Commission back in 2003, it was that was an option, but that was not an option that was chosen. And I presume because of funding considerations. I think the idea was, it must have been, to keep the fee as low as possible and just provide those essential services. So drainage improvement agreements. They're another name for standard drainage contracts. I don't know when the name changed. I've been here for about 3.5 years, and I've only heard of drainage improvement agreements. But the memo or the policy that was approved by the commission back in 1992 refers to it as standard drainage contracts. They are stationary. Most weeks will tell you we hear from property owners about drainage concerns, any drainage problem. And so we have an inspector that will go out and take a look at that for them. If there's anything that can be done within our scope of responsibility, and our scope of ability, again, goes back to those systems that are owned and maintained by Athens-Clarke County. So if there's anything that can be done within that scope to improve the situation, a work order will be carried out. So, for example, if a ditch can be cleaned out or an inlet or something like that. And sometimes trees need to be cut down in the right of way as well. If there's not anything within our scope of responsibility, we have to provide advice to property owners. In the case where a drainage improvement agreement is offered, transportation and public works does the design and the installation. The property owner pays for the materials, and so that's the basis of the agreement. Nuisance flooding, by the way, is something that does not create a significant hazard. It could look really bad and have a lot of water flowing through a yard, but it's not causing any real damage. And a couple days after it rains, you can go and cut the grass, and it's not that big a deal. It can look really bad, but maybe it's not causing any real damage. Unlike the area-wide stormwater master plan, if any of you are familiar with that, which was done back in 2002, and it identified a bunch of projects, ranked them and everything, but there is no comprehensive ranking or prioritization system for drainage improvement agreements. For that master plan, the mayor and commission approved the ranking criteria and all of the specific projects that were selected. I would say it's virtually impossible to convince anyone that the drainage problem on their property is less important than the drainage problem on their neighbor's property that we fixed. So if we do one project on a street, others invariably pop up. There are two things that will, in my experience, I found will always be true. First, people will believe we should be doing more to fix their private drainage issues. And second, many people believe that they are paying to fix someone else's drainage problems, and they aren't happy about that. Does that mean that we never do anything to address private drainage issues? No, but I think you'll see drainage improvement agreements have been rare. Just to point a couple other things out. First, designing drainage improvement agreements does take time. And with the current issue with all the rusting pipes, we could be spending that time designing pipes and save the costs that would be otherwise paid to consultants. Second, drainage improvement agreements are not well suited to multi-parcel projects. And what we see here is that if there's a backyard ditch, some people may really want to have us clean that out. Other people back up to that. They know we really want to keep the trees there as a buffer. So that complicates projects. There is certainly some merit to drainage improvement agreements. At the same time, they are by no means a panacea. So we can see from this list, ditching and rock are common components of drainage improvement agreements. It's averaged about one per year. We have offered more than this, but sometimes property owners, when they think about it and they see the cost and everything, they decide they really don't want to participate. And they may do something on their own. They may just leave it. They may just decide they can live with it the way it is. Notice that none of the drainage improvement agreements over recent history have been on a perennial or live stream, or what could be called state waters. And that's just been a policy, an in-house policy that we've had to avoid permitting and all of that. we conducted a survey of Georgia jurisdictions to get an idea of what they were doing for level of service. I want to highlight a couple of things here. Gwinnett at the bottom is very interesting. They have what they call a rock program. And so the first time I heard about that, and what they do is they provide riprap rock, which is kind of the 6-inch size rock, under certain conditions. One of the conditions Gwinnett has is that there has to be a place in the right of way without a sidewalk to dump the stone. So that kind of limits it. What I thought also was interesting in Gwinnett is they used to have a pipe program, but they're phasing that out. They haven't supplied any pipe in the past couple of years. Pipe is really good for getting rid of water quickly. On the other hand, it does not provide an opportunity for water to soak into the ground. And that's something we're really trying to do, is provide that opportunity for water to soak into the ground. When we look at the last column for Columbia County and for Floyd County, what we see there are the two common reasons for providing service on private property. The first case is an easement that specifically assigns maintenance responsibility to the local jurisdiction. And of course, we have some of those here in Clarke. The second case is when the drainage issue is causing a problem with public infrastructure. So as they say, it's backing water up on the road or something like that. So those are the two common cases. Outside of that, what we see is that jurisdictions generally avoid discretionary work on private property. So this is the second half. And what we notice here is that Roswell also has a rock program, and they limit theirs to 1 tandem load of riprap. One way we obtained the information for this chart was through an American Public Works Association listserv. So it's a little bit random. It isn't filtered for areas that are similar to Athens-Clarke County. We're just giving you all the information. We're showing you everything we found. Some jurisdictions are in different geographic areas for the state. And that would include Moultrie, Savannah, St. Mary's. So Moultrie, they will do stream bank stabilization work on private property. But what happens there is that Moultrie is in a different geographic part of the state. They're really flat. The areas next to the streams are wet bottomlands. I've never been down to Moultrie, but I understand it's quite a bit different there. So what that does is human stream conflicts are minimized because people don't live right up next to waterways. There are many problems in Moultrie because the geography creates its own floodplain management system. What's interesting about that to me, by the way, it supports the idea of stream buffers. We have, the 75-foot stream buffer here on waters, and that also helps minimize human stream conflicts. So that was really smart when we did that. That was before I came. When buildings are not close to streams, there just aren't as many drainage problems. So this is
Kelly,
just a summary
ask a question about this?
Those charts that we just looked at. The majority of them, interestingly enough, they clean driveway pipes. That's not something we have been doing, and at least in certain cases. They limit discretionary services on private property. Moultrie is the one kind of outlier in that respect, and talk about that. They can fix drainage problems because they just don't have any. When we look at the rock programs that Gwinnett and Roswell offer, we see a model that could be used to substitute for what our drainage improvement agreements. And we have been thinking about switching around our drainage improvement agreements anyway. Been having some issues with doing the way we're doing them. One of the advantages there is that could allow us to provide assistance to more property owners, while at the same time helping us focus our design efforts on replacement of rusty pipes, so saving some money there. Like anything else, though, I don't want to mislead people. It's important to keep in mind that a rock program is not a panacea. It might very well be a good idea for Athens-Clarke County, and I think it's something worth exploring. Okay, we are back to the diagram.
Hey, Kelly, do you mind if I ask a question?
I thought I would just have this diagram, and that would be the only thing I'd ever show. So we're back to it. The one thing I've done differently here is I've added a couple of things in yellow, and we're calling those quasi-public. So we've got public, and we've got quasi-public. When we're considering level of service expansions, these are the parts of the system most closely related to the public system. Driveway pipes are often in the right-of-way. They are privately maintained because we're allowing people to traverse the right-of-way to access their property. That's kind of the logic there. But driveway pipes are also part of the roadside drainage system, so they have kind of a dual nature. The other quasi-public issue is being called zone of influence. You've probably heard us talk about that before. Pipe outlets and inlets can often be on private property, well off the right-of-way. But there is a zone of influence, and that's designated as 6 times the pipe diameter, and it may make sense for Athens-Clarke County to maintain that. Yes.
I think Commissioner Hamby had a question. Let me see if he's on.
Okay.
Can you hear me all right, Kelly?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mike, and I'll repeat the question to Todd.
Okay, my question is this. So in the example that he gave for Moultrie about not allowing construction near the streams, that's not the same for us because we've allowed many over the years before we had the 75-foot buffer, many houses built along streams that, you know, several are having some problems along those streams now. So I wanted to point that out.
So Commissioner Hamby was contrasting Moultrie's experience with building near stream buffers with ours, and noting that particularly in the decades before we had a 75-foot stream buffer, there were a lot of houses built much closer than that to streams. I don't know if there's anything that you'd want to offer, Todd, about that.
Yeah, so this has to do before the buffer. It may have been in 2005, something like that, when Athens-Clarke County very wisely implemented the 75-foot stream buffer. And that just helps out in a lot of ways. But before that, yes. You know, we have seen such an evolution in the way stormwater is thought of. In the beginning, it was put it in a ditch, then it was put it in a pipe. And that's why in a lot of downtown areas, you don't see any streams because they're all underground, they're all in pipes. And that was just the way of doing it. So we keep transitioning, we keep evolving to now where we say, let's let a natural stream be a natural stream. And in fact, let's stay away from the stream. That way, you know, we don't have those human stream conflicts. Now, if you would look at a time-lapse aerial view, I mean time-lapse like 1,000 years of a stream, it would be wriggling around like a snake. Now we see that stream and we think, well, that's where it is and that's where it's always been. That is not the case. It moves all around. Now, unfortunately, urbanization makes it worse, can make it worse, and can downgrade and make those streams erode even more. So that makes it kind of doubles the problem. But yes, we have this ongoing evolution in stormwater. It's changed. Stormwater, the field of stormwater has changed so much just in the time of my career, and it continues to change. We have a new standard. We're going to have to implement reduction. But yes, staying away from natural streams is kind of the way of doing things now. Yes.
So our 75-foot stream buffer is actually kind of moot because we allow for new construction, new single-family or housing construction to encroach on that buffer, I think up to 2,500 square feet. So technically, you can build an entire house within that 75-foot buffer, and it's happening in our denser neighborhoods, you know, our higher, like more highly desirable, dense neighborhoods. And I mean, I had a brand new house built right across the street from me that's almost completely in that 75-foot buffer on a stream that does have an erosion problem. So maybe we need to look at our that exemption.
Yes, and Commissioner, I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time we brought up this issue, and it really is. it's complicated, but at the same time, maybe it's an issue that maybe now it's the time that we, if it's your wish, if it's the commission's management's wish, that we embark on a study of that. I'm not sure the best way to do that, but I'm all for it if that's what you want to do. Because yes, I think there are other problems, and they continue to have a case where a house is built kind of in a natural water course, and that's, of course, where we can see the creation of another energy problem. It's going to be very difficult to fix. So, yeah, I think it's time that we need to take a look at it. I agree.
Yeah, and we're also having problems with runoff due to some of this new infill construction. Somebody builds a house behind an existing house or adjacent to some existing homes, and all of a sudden, all that runoff gets funneled into one yard, one neighborhood, one particular property. And it's a private property dispute, and some of these homeowners don't have the resources to contest it.
Yeah. I'll just mention one thing about that. Paradoxically, I always think, well, how can we prevent that from happening in the future in new developments? The way we do it is we have a grading plan for each individual lot. And to do that, we need to allow mass grading. So I think mass grading, and that's something being considered right now for small residential. I think that's something that should be considered with certain conditions. One is that we have that grading plan in place so that when the house is built there, we know exactly where the water is going to go, and it's not going to scare the people, the neighbors that are living next to it.
Well, I'm talking about just infill, like a single home in an infill.
Yeah, the older neighborhoods, yes.
Yeah.
I avoided that because that's really tough.
I mean, those are two issues that I've been chiming about for a while that really need to be addressed.
I'm perfectly willing to look at that if that's the way it's done in the commission. Where was I at here? What's up the diagram?
Todd, I had another comment on what Melissa was saying, if I could, just for a moment. This is Mike again. I'm sorry. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So, I agree with what Melissa's saying, but I also want to point out too that when we've permitted these neighborhoods and permitted these homes close to these streams, what we've also done in allowing for the road to be built, I understand, we allow for the runoff to be emptied into the best point along the road that goes into the stream, but when that happens, we're kind of also responsible for where we put those placements in the best place, but we're also responsible for how that stream is eroding. So I guess I'm going to be arguing as we continue this discussion that we need a higher level of service to help address some of the stream erosion that we're having and some of the problems that Melissa's facing with some of her constituents in the development that we're approving.
So if you didn't hear all of that,
just for right now.
Commissioner Hamby was noting that, we kind of carry all these heritage properties and public infrastructure like the streets themselves. And so that comes with some ongoing maintenance responsibilities.
Oh man, they didn't hear what I said.
the second half, but not the first.
Okay, all right. That's it for now.
All right, so I think the issue, just to kind of restate, has to do, hey, there is runoff from county roads, city roads, that goes into all these streams. So what is Athens-Clarke County level of responsibility with regard to these natural streams? Let's see, we are currently having a stormwater system map. Our consultant is giving us a heads up on the pumping pipes and the deteriorating condition they are coming in, and so we continue to find more infrastructure that is failing. We have the condition of storm pipes in addition to live stream pipes, hammer truck and crew. We talked about that. Would that be a good investment? Help us to more accurately project capital needs. We are also looking into value engineering to make sure that we're not spending any more than we need to on the live stream pipe replacements. The definition of our stormwater in our stormwater utility chapter. So again, we're going back to that was approved at the end of 2004. And we're talking about maybe changing level of service, but what was approved, stormwater management systems and facilities states that they're either owned by Athens-Clarke County government or in easements for its maintenance responsibility is specifically designated to Athens-Clarke County government. And then there's also, we have the Clean Water Act, we have to comply with the permit from Georgia EPD. They have something called municipal separate storm sewer systems. That's the infamous MS4. That's 4 S's in it. And it says essentially the same thing. It's what's owned and operated by Athens-Clarke County. A case can be made, and so this gets to Hamby's issue, can be made to expand our jurisdiction to pick up what the property owners are currently maintaining. That would mean that additional revenue would need to be raised. So this is something that the Mayor and Commission went back and kind of came to a consensus in 2003 through 2004. There was a lot of work and all the kind of work that was done. And so we're just revisiting that whole topic right now, wondering, well, what direction should we go? The capital deficit, which could be thought of as the rusty pipe deficit, is clearly our responsibility. It's our emergency. It's yet to be either fully described or fully funded. Even though it was not set up for this purpose, the Stormwater Enterprise Fund has provided resiliency in dealing with the initial stage of this public crisis. As we have seen, there have not been any improvement agreements. There used to be, and this is an important point, and it's easy to get confused, and I get confused all the time on this. There used to be larger drainage projects that were funded through SPLOST, and a lot of that started went through 2005 through 2015 or so. Those were not part of the level of service for the stormwater fee, and that's where it gets confusing. The SPLOST projects from the area-wide stormwater master plan have been substantially completed. We're beyond that era now, at least for the foreseeable future. We're now into the era of rusty pipes. We could revisit all of that and do all that again with SPLOST, but a lot of great projects were done. A lot of times they addressed street flooding, neighborhood flooding. They were great projects, but we are beyond that era now. One of the things I found very interesting, the American Society of Civil Engineers gives letter grades to infrastructure. For Georgia, the stormwater infrastructure grade is C-. What is really interesting to me is that many states have no grade at all for stormwater infrastructure. That's very telling, isn't it? No one's really even looking at it. I'm going to get off that slide finally. So if we have extra funding, to the extent that we have any extra funding from the stormwater fee, what is the best use of that funding that may be in excess of our operating expenses? Well, replacement of failing pipes is what we have been saving the money for. It would be prudent to save money for failing pipes. SPLOST 2023 could become a critical milestone for pipe funding. In the meantime, we're taking a close look, as I mentioned before, what we're calling value engineering to ensure we aren't spending more than we need to on pipe projects. So we know these pipes are our responsibility, and keeping the roads open has to do with protecting public health, safety, and welfare. Nobody else is going to do that but us. I mentioned a camera truck. That's related to failing pipes because we need to fully identify them. Cleaning driveway pipes we talked about. That's something that is certainly, we see that the majority of other jurisdictions are doing that, at least the ones that we sampled. So that's something that should be explored. Repairing driveway pipes, we see that some jurisdictions are doing that. Again, that gets into more money. Just cleaning the driveway pipes. We should continue to minimize the creation of future stormwater problems from new development and redevelopment. And this gets into the issue that Commissioner Link raised with single-family lots that are not part of larger plan of development, where they're exempted from a lot of regulations. So that's just exactly what I was going to get to. You beat me to it. Maintaining the zone of influence. Those are where the ones in yellow. Replacing the current drainage improvement system, an agreement system with something like the Gwinnett Rock program, something that also could be explored. And then when you get to stabilizing stream banks, including those of state waters, this would entail the need for a substantial increase in funding. One of the things that we see, and there was a case where a tree, it was over 100 feet tall, it was in a drainage easement, and it fell down on someone's house. Well, they said, well, that's your responsibility. Well, if we're responsible for all the 100-foot trees that are falling down stream banks, that's a big increase in our level of service, and that's going to cost a substantial amount of money. So we need to go into that with our eyes wide open, because it's going to be a cost burden that everyone's going to have to share. So when goals are agreed upon, a phased approach, what I'm suggesting is a phased approach makes sense with SPLOST 2023 being a critical milestone, because if we can get the capital deficit funded through that, then that opens up some of this funding from the stormwater fee to do some of these other things that you might like to see done. So I'm not sure how we're going to do this on these next couple of slides, but Stephen Bailey was going to, okay. All right, Jeff's coming up to help me out here.
All right, can everybody hear me? Todd, if you'll go back to the previous slide for just a second, I wanted to make one more point on slide 11. So this is also really a teaser slide for our next work session as well, because what we realize is that every single one of these things costs money, of course. And what I'm hoping we can do with the next work session is actually show you how much money each of these things would cost, right? Because that's the true cost to an individual, to like an average person paying this fee, how that would raise their costs. So these are all, like Todd said, possible levels of service increases. And so the next deliberation really needs to be this plus whatever else you think needs to be part of that utility level of service, and putting dollars to it. So I just wanted to use that as a teaser for what's coming up in a future work session. I'm sure Todd will talk about that in next steps. But all right, let's jump to the next one. I'll talk about funding as it currently stands. So this slide gives just a simple breakdown of our annual utility revenue and then how that's parsed out through our operating budget. And so I just want to show you this to show on a given year the money that we collect and then how it's actually spent out. Note that on those line items there, the majority of our revenue is through the utility fees. We also get a moderate amount of revenue through our land development permits. That's things like land disturbance permits, floodplain construction, and right-of-way encroachment permits. So our expected annual revenue then guides us while we're setting our annual operating budget, which in simple terms breaks down into the different operations that you'll see in that pie chart there, which we use some fall colors to brighten it up a bit. So I'll go through this briefly. Notice that largest portion of those annual expenses, that dark orange, goes towards stormwater infrastructure maintenance, staff, and operations. It's about 48% of the pie. That's the streets and drainage stormwater crew salaries, as well as the materials that they use for day-to-day maintenance and repair of our systems. The second largest piece in brown there is our stormwater billing and administration staff and operations, about 23%. That's the billing section, who also field our stormwater calls and provide customer support. It's our stormwater education specialists and the programs that she puts together. It's all of the stormwater GIS mapping that we use for our different layers, in-house water quality testing. It's also our street sweeping services, which is interesting. That's actually part of our stormwater NPDES requirements, is having the street sweeping program. And then it's also the utility legal fees. The little smaller pieces, just real quickly, land development is about 13%. That's our permitting staff, site inspectors, and plans review operations, how we pay them. Then there's the indirect operating expenses, which it's a bunch of things like vehicles, phones, radios, that kind of stuff. But most of that, 95% of it, is the maintenance and replacement costs for our fleet. Those are the stormwater vehicles like vacuum trucks, our crew cabs, excavators, that kind of thing. And then finally, the smallest little sliver there is our transfers to the net balance for capital funds. So there's, in the budget, we set aside about $200,000 a year for capital. That's annually. And what that usually pays for is our impaired waters monitoring and reporting. That's the stuff that's specifically required through the Clean Waters Act permit. But anytime our annual budgeted expenses are lower than the revenue, those funds build up, and that builds up a net balance of the enterprise fund. And that's given us an opportunity to roll additional capital dollars into our enterprise capital program. That's allowed us to continue funding a number of our live stream pipe replacement projects in the last couple of years. So over the past 10 years, that's added up, that excess revenue over expenses has added up to about $4.6 million, an average of about $460,000 annually, which is rolled into our capital budget each year and helped us to complete 24 different live stream pipe replacement projects, which I know you're probably all intimately aware of. Those we keep talking about them a lot, but those are all those failing pipe projects on failing pipes under the roadway. Todd, if you want to jump to the next slide.
Well, Kelly, do you mind if I ask a question real quick before Todd does this?
Sure.
Okay, so my question is about this chart here. You know, it's interesting that, and if everybody can hear me, that'd be great. It's interesting that we're referring this now not to a fee, but a utility. So in thinking about water, thinking about stormwater, thinking about what you need to do to make sure all of that's clean going into our streams and rivers, you know, why would we not think about putting our stormwater systems underneath our public utilities department, which certainly has more money available to it within its fund balance and within its reserves for us to be able to do some of the things we need to do with stormwater. So just something to think about as we're looking at next steps. You know, if it's called a utility, let's put it within the public utilities department. Hope everybody got that. Sounded good. Hello.
And, you know, Mayor Gertz or Blaine, I don't know if you want to talk to that specifically.
They don't have to tonight. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there.
Sure.
You know, I mean, if you're calling a utility, put it in the public utilities. And everybody go look at the fund balance and the reserve funding within our public utilities department. I know we're going to spend a bunch of that money here in just a bit for the quarry, but even still, take a look at it.
It'll be interesting to see what models are there.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So on slide 13, you know, I do realize that piece there with our enterprise fund is not the full funding story, right? Because we've had other sources of capital funds in the past to pay for large stormwater projects. Our
right.
multiple
and
SPLOST
I'm sorry. I meant to say one other thing about your little pie chart there about the administrative and the billing. Another reason to look at a different model, Kelly, and others there, the commissioners, is because if we're spending that money on billing and administration, we already have a billing and administration folks within the water department. So we're really duplicating a lot of systems here that could save some money or have that money goes towards helping us fix some of the stormwater stuff that we have. That's all. Thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, I appreciate that. It's good to think about that kind of duplication of overhead is certainly something to think about. All right. So on that next slide with all the SPLOST listed on it, Todd. So notice that those SPLOSTs have funded a number of things. It started with funding the area-wide stormwater master plan, which Todd talked a little bit about. Those projects over the last couple of decades. That master plan identified 77 level 1 stormwater projects, and that was focused on improving existing systems that were suffering from quantity-related problems, which is just a technical term meaning that there's, underdesigned or undersized pipes and culverts that were leading to flooding issues. So utilizing the multiple SPLOST we've had over the years, we were able to complete 51 of those 77 level 1 projects. With the latest approvals from a few months ago of those excess SPLOST 2011 funds and through the SPLOST 2020 referendum, we're also now able to focus capital dollars on the live stream pipe replacement program, in addition to the limited funds that I talked about on the last slide that are coming through that stormwater fee for this purpose. And just to clear up the confusion on the two programs, because I know that sometimes they can be used interchangeably and incorrectly, just remember that the live stream pipe replacements are really large-scale maintenance and replacement of failing pipes. It's that repair what's there model that we talked about before. The area-wide stormwater projects are improvements to a system. So those pipes aren't necessarily falling apart, but they aren't achieving an efficient conveyance of the water. So that's why we're seeing areas with excess flooding issues. And I did want to reiterate, we still believe both programs are important to that central mission of ensuring health, safety, and welfare of the public. But we focused these recent efforts on the live stream program just because those have been more imminent, large-scale concerns, with collapsing pipes under the roadways posing a more serious safety threat than flooding issues in a lot of cases. So we will come back with a later work session to talk more about future capital funding strategies. And I imagine that's also a big part of the next conversation about future level of service as well, which I guess is a good segue into next steps. So I will hand it back over to Todd to talk about those.
All right, Stephen. I was kind of thinking Stephen was going to talk about next steps, but I think what we're seeing is that there's a balance between cost. The stormwater fee is low. It's only paid once a month by most single-family residential, and it's like $45 a year. Now, there's some that's more than that, but it really is pretty low. So it's a balance between cost and services that are provided, and a lot of stormwater fees are low, kind of like ours are. So that's just something that needs to be examined. The other, I think, theme that comes out for me, and I'm an engineer, and there's something called engineering ethics, and all that boils down to is holding paramount health, safety, and welfare of the public. So that's our mission, that's our calling, that's my bias for sure, and that's what we have to take care of. We have to do that. These other things are discretionary, and if we want to do them, let's do them. And let's identify the funding, but let's understand that that's the balance that we're talking about. So when we talk about level of service strategy, it's that balance. And yes, and I'm not the only one that talks about public health, safety, and welfare. It's in chapter 5.5, stormwater management. It's the purpose, and it's the reason that stormwater fee was enacted. So I'm not making that up. And technical standards is something that I want to talk to you when your schedule is less busy sometime, whenever that is. And of course, we've got the holiday season coming up, which doesn't help. But there are some new things that are happening. One is this runoff reduction, which means when it rains an inch, there's not supposed to be any runoff at all from new development. So that's great. It's also seemingly almost impossible. And so I've been struggling to write some standards that will help designers achieve that goal. And there's some other things as well, one of which is simply, this is one of the basic things that, believe it or not, is not in all stormwater management ordinances. And that's making sure that new houses, new buildings aren't flooded. I know we talk about the tension in the downstream houses, but what about the ones within that new development? There are certainly things we could do. There's a floodplain mapping, but there's smaller streams with no mapping at all, and people just don't realize that those flood until it rains really hard. And then you go and they say, you wouldn't believe how much water there is. It's like a river. I've heard that so many times. And so what we have to do, I think, is try to prevent those problems from coming up in the first place, so that we don't have to go back and talk about level of service and why we're not providing, level of service and fixing all these private drainage problems, because there just aren't anymore. We get them fixed and then we're done. So that's that's certainly the goal. So that's something that's coming up. Update technical standards. Yes. All right. And that's the end, finally.
Other questions for Todd, Melissa?
I think that Commissioner Hamby might be onto something as far as treating a stormwater utility like a regular utility where you get your monthly bill. Because I think part of the problem folks have is the sticker shock. I mean, I know when I was flat broke and I'd get my stormwater bill once a year and have to shell out 75, 80 bucks, that was a lot in one fell swoop. But if it were broken up, monthly, it might be less painful for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I think that's true as opposed to, as opposed to $4 a month. Well, that doesn't sound like very much, does it? Mm-hmm. I wish we were always talking about it monthly. One of the things that we do with homeowner fee is usually paid by the owner. Of course, there's so much rental property here in Athens-Clarke County, and most of the time the water bill is by the tenants. So that's one reason that we have such a billing system. I used to work for a jurisdiction where the fee was on property tax bill. I don't know you can't do that because people will think of it as a tax. Well, people will call it a tax anyway, so that's good. So, but there's all different ways of doing it, and again, back in 2002 to 2005, all of these things were discussed, had items, and I was not here, so I did not make those decisions. I'm just living with them like everyone else and trying to execute the plan as well as I can. So, yeah, that's pretty much all of it.
Any other questions for Todd? Tim?
So on the
Which I think definitely spoke to, I think, some of the problems that Commissioner Hamby was saying that I've seen. And I understand the challenges of trying to, but other areas that have done that, or if we were to go, what would be the idea of us, how we would calculate that zone of influence, how far that goes into a person's property and such?
I don't know who came up with it, but it's commonly thought of as 6 times diameter pipe. 6-foot diameter pipe, that's 36 feet beyond the end of it. Okay. You do need to limit it.
No, yeah, I was just wondering where that would be. Yeah. Okay.
And it gets complicated because there may be a pipe that the city put in to Green Road, and then 30 years later, 5 different property owners added onto that pipe, water, the pipe is half a mile away, and we really want to get into that into the pipe. So different jurisdictions like do that. Nothing's easy in stormwater. Like it should be, but nothing.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Todd before we move on to the
I have one more statement.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just one more quick statement, if I could, Kelly. I won't take any more time. But and to Tim's point, I guess from what I heard, if we're looking at stormwater and how it impacts private property, if we've permitted homes to be built near these streams, so maybe even those before 2005 or after 2005, but if we've permitted those homes and the stream is eroding because of the stormwater that we're shoveling into the stream, so we're kind of responsible for that stream eroding there a little bit as well. At some point, it does become a public health issue for those homes close to the streams that may be in danger of falling into the streams. I know, certainly I've got a couple in my district that have had some problems getting close to that. I know there's one in former Commissioner Neesmith's district as well over in River Bottom, I believe, or Woodhaven. That's really bad. So, if we're looking at this as a public health, that needs to be looked at as a public health. I mean, certainly, if these streams are eroding and a tree falls on one of these homes and hurts somebody in these homes, aren't we going to be responsible for that?
Commissioner Hamby was making the point that Oftentimes what you have is a phenomenon where, these homes have existed for decades, and, you've essentially created, or past decades, past leadership and past permitting has created a public health crisis, particularly for those people who have the possibility of trees that may be in the bank, having soil erode around them and really threaten their life and livelihoods.
You said it much nicer than me.
Well, and thank you, Commissioner Hamby. And I think that's exactly why we need to go ahead and broach the conversation that has been started tonight. And as far as next steps, bringing to you some different levels of service to discuss, understand, ask questions. And then once you indicate the types of levels of service that you want us to look into, we can financially model that and find out how much funds it's going to take to address those issues. So that's a conversation that's probably overdue at this point, and we need to go ahead and bring that forward.
Thanks, Manager Williams. All right, I think we're ready to move into the special called session portion of the evening. So if Assistant Clerk Howard is on.
I am.
All right. Ms. Howard, if you could just call roll for us.
Okay. Davenport.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Link.
Here.
Link.
Here.
Denson. I'm sorry, Wright.
She is absent.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I did.
Commissioner Wright is absent.
Denson.
Here.
Edwards. Harrod.
Harrod is absent.
Thornton.
Yes.
Hamby.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we just have one item to vote upon tonight in our special called session, and then we need to make a motion to enter executive session. There's an ordinance to read on the first item, so I'm going to go ahead and let Attorney Drake do that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Before we do it, does there need to be a suspension of the rules?
Oh, I appreciate that. Motion for suspension of rules for special called session. I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, second from Commissioner Denson for suspension of rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've suspended rules. Go right ahead, Attorney Drake.
An ordinance to amend the FY 2021 annual operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide funding for expenses related to the acquisition of the Rock Hill Quarry for a water storage facility and for other purposes.
All right, thank you, Attorney Drake. And this just memorializes our purchase of the rock quarry that we announced last week. And so I entertain a motion for approval. Second. I've got a motion for approval from Commissioner Edwards, second from Commissioner Denson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, I'd entertain a motion now to enter into executive session upon conclusion of the work session. All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards.
Second.
All right, I've got a second from Commissioner Parker. All in favor of entering executive session upon conclusion of the work session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we will enter the executive session upon conclusion of the work session. All right, I need a motion to adjourn upon concluding that executive session.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards and a second from Commissioner Davenport to adjourn upon conclusion of our executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I think that concludes our voting action for this evening.
Do I need to call Ken?
And we're going to get the lights working again here, and we can move on to the next presentation from the Corrections Division.